Welcome to Books in Brief. Today, we are tearing down one of the most persistent myths in business and, honestly, in life. It's the idea that competition is good and that the best way to succeed is to simply do what works, but just a little bit better.
It sounds like safe, rational advice, doesn't it? But according to the text we're covering today, it's actually a recipe for, well, for mediocrity at best.
So which book are we diving into?
We are doing a deep dive into 0 to 1, Notes on Startups or How to Build the Future by Peter Thiel with Blake Masters.
And this isn't just a business manual, strictly speaking. It reads more like a philosophy manifesto for how to break out of stagnation.
It really does. And Peter Thiel isn't exactly writing from the sidelines,
No, not at all. He co-founded PayPal and Palantir, and he was the first outside investor in Facebook.
Right. So he has a resume to back up some very, very aggressive claims. And the central thesis here is right in the title.
0 to 1.
Exactly. Thiel argues that there are two distinct types of progress. You have 1 to N and you have 0 to 1.
And that distinction is crucial. 1 to N. That's horizontal progress.
Right.
It's copying things that work.
Yeah.
It's globalization. So if I take one typewriter and I build 100 more typewriters, I've added value, sure, but I haven't really changed the world.
You've scaled, but you haven't innovated. Vertical progress, on the other hand, is going from 0 to 1.
Doing something new.
Something nobody has ever done before. It's taking that typewriter and inventing a word processor. That is technology.
And Thiel's point is that while globalization, just copying things, is easy to imagine, going from 0 to 1 is incredibly hard.
It is, because it requires you to see a future that doesn't actually exist yet.
It requires a specific kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And Thiel actually has a litmus test for this, which he calls the contrarian question. I think he uses it in job interviews.
He does. He asks candidates, what important truth do very few people agree with you on?
It sounds so simple, but when you actually try to answer it, you realize how trapped we all are in conventional wisdom.
Oh, absolutely. Most people just give, a political opinion that half the country already agrees with.
Right.
But a good answer isn't a debated opinion. It's a view of the future that contradicts the present. It forces you to admit that the future isn't just some random thing we have to prepare for.
It's something we can actually shape.
If we understand truths that everyone else is ignoring.
And one of those truths, probably the most provocative part of 0 to 1, is his stance on capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
We're taught in Econ 101 that competition is the engine of capitalism. Thiel just says that's a lie.
He flips the script completely. He argues that capitalism and competition are, in fact, opposites.
Which sounds crazy at first.
It does. But think about it. Under perfect competition, all the profits get competed away.
Right.
The margins go to zero because you're fighting for every single customer on price.
So to create and capture lasting value, you shouldn't be competing.
You should be building a monopoly.
Now, we should probably clarify monopoly here. He isn't talking about a government-protected utility or a bully using illegal tactics.
No, not at all. He defines a monopoly as a company so good at what it does that no other firm can offer a close substitute. It's a creative monopoly.
He uses a really brutal comparison to prove the point, right? Between airlines and Google.
Yes, the 2012 data. The U.S. airlines generated massive revenue, something like $160 billion.
A huge number.
But because they were in this cutthroat competitive market, they kept almost none of it. I think the profit per passenger trip was something like 37 cents.
37 cents. That's unbelievable.
It is. Now contrast that with Google. Same year, they made much less revenue, $50 billion, but they kept 21% of it as pure profit.
Wow.
So Google alone was worth more than all the U.S. airlines combined. That's the difference between fighting for scraps and owning the board as a monopoly.
And the funny thing is, companies do everything they can to hide this. The book calls this lies people tell.
It's a game of disguise. So monopolists, like Google, want to avoid regulation, so they tell the monopoly lie.
They pretend they're just a small fish in a massive pond.
Exactly. Google won't say, we own search. They'll say, well, we're a small player in the global advertising market, or we compete with the entire consumer tech sector.
And then you have struggling startups doing the complete opposite. They tell the competitive lie.
Right. They try to define their market so narrowly that they look like a monopoly when they're not.
This is the British food in Palo Alto. Example from the book.
That's the one. You open a restaurant and you tell investors, we're the only British food place in Palo Alto. We own the market.
But that's a total delusion.
Of course it is.
Right.
Because you're not just competing with other British food, you're competing with the sushi place next door, the burger joint.
The grocery store.
Everything. You're artificially shrinking the intersection to make yourself look unique. It's like that movie pitch analogy he uses.
Oh, the Jay-Z one.
It's Jay-Z starring in a cross between Hackers and Jaws. Sure, nobody has done that movie before.
But that doesn't mean it's a valuable monopoly. It's just a weird idea. So you can't fake a monopoly with wordplay. You actually have to build one. And Thiel outlines 4 specific characteristics that real monopolies have.
The first one is the bedrock, proprietary technology.
But it can't just be slightly better.
No. Thiel says your tech needs to be an order of magnitude 10 times better than the closest substitute. A 10x improvement.
Why so high? Why 10x?
Because if you only offer, say, a 20% improvement, people just won't switch. There's too much friction, too many established habits.
It's not worth the hassle.
Right. Look at PayPal. Before them, you had to mail checks and wait 10 days. PayPal made payments instant. That's a clear 10x improvement.
Okay, so you have the 10x tech. What's next?
Network effects. This is where the product becomes more valuable as more people use it, but there's a trap here.
Which is?
You can't try to capture the whole world on day one. Facebook is the textbook case.
Mark Zuckerberg didn't launch for the planet. He launched just for Harvard.
Just Harvard. He captured a tiny, dense network first, and then he expanded.
That ties into the third point, doesn't it? Economies of scale.
It does. And software is king here. The marginal cost of adding another user is basically zero. A real monopoly gets stronger as it gets bigger.
And the fourth characteristic is branding. He points to Apple, obviously.
You have to mention Apple, but Thiel gives a warning here. Branding's the final layer. It's not the foundation. You can't build a company on brand alone. It has to be backed by that substantive 10x tech.
So the strategy isn't go big or go home. It's actually the complete opposite. It's start small and monopolize.
Precisely. The biggest mistake ambitious founders make is trying to grab 1% of a $100 billion market.
Because that means you're competing with absolutely everyone.
Right. The smart play is to find a tiny market like Jeff Bezos did with books and just dominate it completely. Be the big fish in a very small pond.
Then you can expand.
Then you expand to adjacent markets. Amazon went from books to CDs to videos to, well, to everything. It's all about sequencing.
Let's shift a bit to the math behind success, because 0 to 1 really challenges how people think about risk. He introduces the power law.
This is so critical. We're taught to think in terms of a bell curve, that most things are average. Thiel argues the world actually follows a power law.
Meaning a small handful of companies will radically outperform all the others combined.
Radically. He calls it the biggest secret in venture capital.
Which is?
That in a successful VC fund, the single best investment doesn't just do well. It returns more money than the entire rest of the fund combined.
Wow. Which implies that the common advice of diversification is actually a huge mistake.
It's a very strong stance, but yes. He argues that by diversifying, by not putting all your eggs in one basket, you're basically admitting you don't know what's going to work.
He says you can't diversify your life.
You can't. You can't run 10 companies. You need to focus intensely on finding the one thing that lies on the high end of that power law curve.
And finding that one thing means you have to look where other people aren't looking. This brings us to the chapter on secrets.
This is my favorite part of the whole philosophy. Thiel argues that every great company is built around a secret.
A truth that's important, but unknown to the mainstream.
Exactly. If you're doing something everyone already understands, you're just competing. You're in the one-to-one world. To go from 0 to 1, you need to know something others don't.
But he claims our society has kind of stopped looking for secrets. We've become incrementalists. And he uses this really strange comparison to illustrate the point.
The hipster and the Unabomber.
Yes, it's a jarring comparison.
It is, but it works. He says that despite being opposites, they share the same fundamental worldview, that there are no secrets left.
Right. The Unabomber thinks technology went too far and has to be stopped.
And the hipster thinks everything's already been invented, so all they can do is just curate retro styles, vinyl records, handlebar mustaches. Both of them reject the idea that there is a frontier left to explore.
But the frontier is there. You just have to look for it. The book uses Airbnb and Uber as perfect examples.
Yes. Those weren't technological breakthroughs in, physics. The secret was a hidden truth about human behavior.
For Airbnb, It was that people were willing to let strangers sleep in their spare rooms.
And for Uber, it was that people would get into cars with strangers. Both of those ideas seemed completely insane until someone proved them true.
So you find a secret, you build a monopoly plan, now you need a team. And 0 to 1 is very, very strict about foundations. He calls it Thiel's law.
Thiel's law. A startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. You can't fix a bad co-founder marriage. You can't fix a broken culture.
He points to the PayPal mafia as the model.
That group of early employees who went on to found Tesla, LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp.
It wasn't just that they were smart. It was that they were cohesive.
They were obsessed. And the culture wasn't about ping pong tables or free sushi. It was about a group of people who were all the same kind of nerd, totally unified by a single mission.
And Thiel used the one thing rule to keep them aligned.
Right. Every single employee was responsible for exactly one thing. It just eliminated office politics because no one's job overlapped.
He also tests commitment with something he calls the bus test.
You're either on the bus or off the bus. No consultants. No part-time employees. If you want that cult-like dedication, people need to be fully immersed.
And he prefers equity over cash.
He does. High cash salaries encourage people to think short-term, like they've already won. Equity locks everyone into the long-term mission. If the company wins, we all win.
There is one area, though, where that nerd mindset usually stumbles, and that's sales.
Oh, this is a classic blind spot. Engineers and product people love to believe if we build it, they will come.
They think sales is dishonest or superficial.
They do. And Thiel says this is a fatal error. Sales is just as important as the product. The best product in the world doesn't win if nobody hears about it or understands why they need it.
Speaking of things people misunderstand, let's touch on the fear of AI, this idea that computers are coming for our jobs.
Thiel reframes this completely.
Yeah.
He distinguishes between substitution and complementarity.
Okay.
Globalization is substitution. It's people in different countries competing for the exact same jobs. But technology, he argues, is complementarity.
Computers are good at what we're bad at, and we're good at what they're bad at.
Precisely. Computers are great at processing massive amounts of data. They're terrible at judgment and context. Humans are the opposite.
So the goal isn't to replace the human, it's to empower them.
Right. He uses his own company, Palantir, as the model. They didn't try to build an AI that catches terrorists on its own. They built software that lets human analysts sift through data to find patterns they'd otherwise miss. It's man-machine symbiosis.
We should probably briefly mention why this mindset is so urgent. The book dedicates a chapter to the clean tech crash of the 2000s.
That was a total disaster of one-to-end thinking. Investors poured billions into solar and wind, but most of those companies failed.
Why?
Because they ignored the basics. They failed the engineering question. They only had tiny improvements, not 10x tech. And they failed the secret question. Everyone was doing the same thing. There was no secret.
The only real survivor mentioned is Tesla.
Because Tesla got the questions right. And crucially, they understood the social secret. They knew that in the beginning, green was a fashion statement.
Prius drivers wanted to be seen being green.
Exactly. So Tesla didn't build a cheap little eco car. They built a high-end luxury sports car. They made it cool. They dominated that niche first.
That brings us to the ultimate takeaway. 0 to 1 presents 4 ways of looking at the future. You've got recurrent, collapse, plateau.
Extinction, and then take off.
Takeoff is the goal.
It's the goal. It's the singularity. It's where we create new technology to build a radically better future. But Thiel warns against what he calls indefinite optimism.
Which is the idea that things will just magically get better on their own, the finance view of the world.
Exactly. Just diversify and hope for the best. He advocates for definite optimism. That's the attitude of the space age. Believing the future will be better because we're going to build it.
It requires a plan.
We need a plan. We cannot just take progress for granted.
But a heavy charge to end on. The future isn't random. It's something we have to construct.
We have to find the secrets, build the monopolies, and push from 0 to 1. Otherwise, as he says, we're just marking time.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this brief exploration of the book, feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. New book insights are coming soon. See you next time.